Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick, and we're here today to talk about the draft coming up in 2 days. You'll actually be probably listening to this on Wednesday, so it's tomorrow for you. Vas Larikos is here, and we're going to talk about the Ravens' thought process, description of value, some of the needs in the draft, some players we want to see drafted before the Ravens go at 30, possibility of trading. A lot of people are thinking about that. And perhaps the most likely or most reasonable selections the Ravens might make among players who are outside the consensus top 20. So we'll go through all that in what will probably be a slightly long episode today. But Vas, how are you doing?
Doing great, Ken. One of my favorite weekends of the year coming up with the draft, and looking forward to our Friday morning GM draft special episode here. I think we have some thoughts that'll be maybe insightful and provocative, and just get into the discussion because I can't wait to see how this draft unfolds.
Yeah, very, very good. Also definitely one of the best weekends of the year. I kind of feel if you're a football analyst and you're not doing anything on draft weekend, it's kind of like not having a date on New Year's Eve or not having not having plans for a big holiday of some sort. So it's not having plans for Christmas. To me, that's a good way to describe it. That would be better. But let's start, and I want you to introduce this topic because I know it's near and dear to your heart, and talk about like the Ravens' approach to the draft and how they compartmentalize value.
Certainly. Well, the first point I'd like to make, and this just I think came up in the analytical community last cycle mostly, on the topic of best player available. One of the analysts made the comment that the GMs aren't really looking for the best player available, or at least they shouldn't be. They should be looking for the most impactful player over the duration of the rookie contract. So that certainly spirals into a few conversations, and we know Eric DeCosta is a strong proponent of value investing, and I think there's several tentacles that make up that component of the value. I would say there's probably go ahead. I'm sorry, Ken.
I love how the way you set that up with the most important thing you said, I think there being the most value over the rookie contract. And I look at that and I say, in terms of draft picks, a lot of people want to look at career AV as a draft metric. And oftentimes because it's hard to sort out from the first contract. And sometimes it can be actually really confusing with a player like Geno Stone, who's cut and then returns on his first contract to the Ravens. But other times you have a player who can be great for 4 years, fall off the table with another team. So it really was a great pick. The classic example in Ravens history is Dwayne Starks.
Absolutely correct there. So, because that's what they're contractually obligated for 4 years. They're not with you for the duration. You have to renegotiate, obviously, and that becomes a whole new set of parameters. So to me, I really bucket value to the team in 3 categories. The first would be just pure ability. How do you grade the player? How's his tape? How's his measurables? And how's his football character, which is one thing that we really don't know, but certainly plays a huge part into the evaluation. The second part, I think, of value is
let's stop for a second. Football character, you by that you mean work ethic?
Work ethic. That's really work ethic. I think, off the field is unpredictable. Sometimes the most buttoned up guys get in trouble, and the guys that are knuckleheads in college, screw their head on straight in the pros. But work ethic is something sort of ingrained, I think, for most players. Just that's the way it is. Second would be market forces. Certainly supply and demand, positional value, opportunity cost, replaceability. You pick a player, and if you pick a player at a certain position, he would have more trade value long-term or compensatory pick value to you long-term at a different position. So I think the market forces is another component.
We've certainly seen that in play at some positions that become almost exclusively top of the first round positions. Quarterback being one. This is a big draft where we're going to see quarterbacks drafted almost certainly number 1, 2, and 3 in this draft. 4 quarterbacks gone very early, and possibly as many as 6 quarterbacks gone by number 29. So uh, excited. The Ravens certainly hope it ends that way. You go to left tackle. It's a very deep left tackle draft, and there's still a concern that there won't be any good ones left by the time the Ravens draft at 30.
Very true. Very true. We'll get into that in just a moment. The third component, I believe, is team need. And really, it's just boils down to sometimes a projection of playing time. If you pick Trenton Simpson, for example, and he's the best player, but he's basically going to have a redshirt year, you're sacrificing 25% of his rookie contract. So that's sort of the way I like to look at it. Shio Kapadia authored an article for The Ringer. One of the categories was the BPA trap, where some GMs just want to pick the pure best player, and it's not necessarily the most valuable player. So I just thought that would be something to introduce here at the top of the show. Maybe something that, as we've gotten a little bit more analytically driven, transitioning from Ozzie Newsome to Eric DeCosta may come into play this year.
Yeah, all great points, by the way. I think that's a good citation there. I think one of the things I would point to in the 4-year value thing is I don't expect, and particularly with the Ravens' history of developing offensive linemen, for example, I don't expect to get 25% of the value in that year. What I do expect to get is probably more than 25% of the developmental opportunity with that player, and probably a little bit less than 25% of the value output. So that makes sense. That's important when discussing a player who comes in with an injury, is that you're going to lose a lot of that developmental opportunity. Ojabo, obviously the classic recent case of that not working out for the Ravens, or not working out so far, at least, let's put it that way. But some offensive linemen, it's perfectly okay to have a redshirt year. You expect it. I think the Ravens are in that position to a certain degree with trying to replace Ronnie Stanley at left tackle.
Absolutely. Very good context and nuance to add to that point. Completely agree.
All right. Well, let's see. We'll move on. We had a special segment here to talk about the Ravens' needs, and we're going to count them down from 8 to 1 here. So each kind of forced ourselves into 8. And they may look similar, they may look a little different, but Voss, why don't you start us off with number 8?
Number 8, I am going to go with backup quarterback as my 8th choice. I think obviously Tyler Huntley has moved on. Josh Johnson is around at advanced age, almost my age at this point. And you don't know what you have with Malik Cunningham, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're devoting a large portion of your salary cap to a backup. So drafting a young player that can get you through a few games, as Huntley was able to do a few times, would be a lower tier need for me.
Yeah, I agree. A lower tier need. And I think that I have that also at number 8. And I think that if I look at the backup quarterback, there's a couple of things about it. This class, first of all, I think has a really limited middle class of quarterbacks. In fact, I really believe the only middle class quarterback in the entire draft is probably Spencer Rattler. And you have the top 6, and they're well defined. They may all be gone by 29. Wouldn't want any of them anyway because of the draft capital required. I don't think I'd want to go as high as a 3rd or 4th round pick on Spencer Rattler. So that leaves a bunch of guys who probably could be drafted rounds 5, 6, and 7. But I think the Ravens actually would probably find their guy from the UDFA ranks. So it might be somebody who we really did not expect. Maybe a smaller school guy, maybe a running guy, maybe not a running guy. I've heard good arguments for both sides. Jordan Coe was on the show, and he thought, this is a good opportunity for you to really show a different facet. They know how you play, and if you're just going to go out there with another running quarterback who's not as good and more linear in terms of his running style, doesn't read leverage, doesn't really give you the read option value, then you can't run the same offense. So go ahead and throw something completely new in them, even if you have to change on the fly. And I understand that point of view. So I think the Ravens could go to a fair number of different guys. I don't think it has to be one of the guys that you see in the top 15 or so quarterbacks that are mentioned, who most of those guys will probably be drafted by the 7th round.
Yes, agree. As far as the point is, throwing a curveball, how many times did the Pittsburgh Steelers have a backup quarterback that was completely different style, a scrambler, and it really it was advantageous in the week-to-week matchup. So I can see both sides of it. But then again, if you can find a playmaker that can do some damage on the ground, in Lamar, the offense is already built that way too. So you're probably in a pretty good spot to just take the player you like the best, or UDFA, and use the value calculation there. So,
either way, you get that nice improvement in the value relative to cap by resetting, though. And they even, in some ways, let's see, Tyler Huntley he was with the Ravens for just 4 years, right? They played him a an RFA year this last year, but they never had to sign him to a second deal.
Right. 3-year original from the UDFA. Yep. Number 7.
Sure.
Ready? So for me, number 7 is going to be inside linebacker. I think that primarily a special teams player, but the Ravens could use some depth. They're not quite sure what you have in Josh Ross. You also you did give Chris Board a guaranteed contract, but there's no guarantee he's going to be a long-term piece there. And with the new kickoff rule, you might want to carry an extra linebacker for special teams. So not certainly a lower tier need for me. I'm pretty pleased with the starters. I'm bullish on Trenton Simpson, at least in the 2-down role, and we'll see where it goes. But we definitely add some depth there.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I actually grouped 3 positions together with my number 7 because I think they're similar in a way, although if looking at this now, I might redo it slightly. But I had depth pieces at safety, running back, and inside linebacker. I think they need, in each of those cases, I don't think they need a top of the draft player. They're all, I think, day 3 picks potentially. Mm-hmm. And I'll go through briefly what I think I want them to get at that. An inside linebacker, surprising perhaps, I really think the Ravens need is for a 2-down player. The reason I think that is that I look at what would happen if Roquan went down for any reason. The truth of the matter is they'd probably go to the street and find the next Josh Bynes, because I don't think it'll be Josh Bynes this time, to come back and play, come and play. If they lost Simpson, they might divide that weak side role into 2 spots, a 2-down player and a dime back, or potentially a linebacker who they'd use on 3rd down. I think, honestly, a dime back would make more sense. So they need a 2-down player is my thought at inside linebacker. I did a lot of my inside linebacker rankings with that in mind. At safety, I think they need 2 things. First of all, they only have 2 guys on the team that are even signed right now. I want them to be up to 6 safeties by the time camp opens. Basically to have 5 on the roster so that they can have 4 on game day. And then there are times when they're going to need 5 on game day if they need to potentially play a dime back instead of Simpson or because of injury, as I just mentioned. But I think they need a lot of safeties at this point. Late round has been the place the Ravens have always gotten safety. They've done a marvelous job. And safeties who are limited to a dime back role, that's not a hard spot to find them. Split field safeties, as we saw with Geno Stone, can be found there too. So that either way, perfectly reasonable places to get that. I think those are the 2 needs. They don't need another great single high safety, and they really don't need a strong safety, in my opinion. Right. Although they might get one if that's the way that drops out. But would not shock me, by the way, if they draft 2 safeties here. Would also not shock me if they draft 1 and then find others with Worley and a couple of UDFAs potentially.
Safeties higher on my list. We'll get there in a few rounds. Jalen Simpson out of Auburn is a potential late round safety that has caught my eye recently. So
now he's the lighter guy, right?
He is. Yeah. So he's a split field. He's a split field guy to me. Yep.
All right, we can talk about that, the other safeties when you get to the other thing. I'll just add the 3rd pick at running back, stylistic fit for the Ravens. They need a 1-cut runner. In some ways, that's the largest group of running backs or guys who are a little bit slashers. And the Ravens are going to be better at picking out who that guy is, obviously. There's also an opportunity, along with safety and some other positions, to find a small school guy where the Ravens currently are 0 for 43 in the DeCosta era picking small school players. The last small school player they drafted was Ozzy's last pick, Zach Sealer. The last one before that was 2 picks earlier. It was Greg Senat from Wagner. So they really have not done it at all during Eric's tenure, which is very surprising because I thought that would be a significant additional component given his background and helping to scout a lot of those small school players.
Completely agree as far as the small school players. Unfortunately, I think the transfer rule has negated some of their efficiency there. If you look at Florida State, for example, they have Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, who are both small school guys who transferred to FSU. and became, top 50 potentially picks. There's not a whole lot of Quinion Mitchells who are staying at the smaller schools for the duration anymore. It just might have to be a little bit of an adjustment going forward.
And just to be clear, Toledo would not even technically qualify for the small school because that's a MAC school. Mm-hmm. So they're actually in the FBS. I'm talking about dipping down into the FCS, which is North Dakota State, South Dakota. Right. I mean, there are guys in this draft who are available and known, but it's not a whole lot. South Dakota State has a offensive lineman and whatnot. But
McCormick, yep. I think, or is he North Dakota State? Either way.
You got it right, South Dakota.
Number 6, right? We're on a 6. For me, that's going to be offensive guard, and not a huge priority. I'm pretty optimistic on Andrew Voorhees and Ben Cleveland. I think Josh Jones can potentially play there. You still have Saleh, but I think I'd like to get a swing player who has some versatility later in the draft. So this would kind of be so I would say linebacker, quarterback, and running back are tier 3 for me. Offensive guard would be a tier 2 need, sort of like a 4th, 5th round type of range on that player. Because you do need a succession plan. This is Ben Cleveland's final year, and you're not completely set there, but you do have pretty good, at least you have some bodies.
Yeah, I'm all for that. It's actually a little higher on my list of things, so I have something in between. I'll go to let me address it. Let me address it while we're here. The Ravens have been very good at finding guys in those mid rounds who fit this need. I think this might be a draft where they go a little higher. If they could get a true guard tackle swingman like a Michael Onwenu, I don't think they get him real late, like 182, like the Patriots did. I think they get him a little bit earlier in this draft. Maybe as early as say the 3rd round to get that play. I wouldn't be upset if they doubled down there and they waited a little bit longer on say cornerback or wide receiver, which are significant needs in order to do it. But that is a case, and part of that and part of the swingman thing is they've got 2 tackle positions they need to replace by the start of the 2025 season. That left tackle position, as we know, both positions, real high barriers to entry, and so they will have difficulty doing it. I think if the swingman they can get some playing time, and then he truly can either be a guard or a tackle, then I don't mind deferring that effectively right tackle choice until 25 because you will have more options on that side.
Mm-hmm. Brandon Coleman out of TCU is a player that probably fit that bill pretty nicely in that same draft range with that ideal skill set. I'm sorry. So who's your 6, Ken?
Yeah, my 6 is find a value pick on the defensive line. I don't have a huge concern about the defensive line. It's 5 guys who played every snap last year, all returning, but that means they're all a year older and they're playing for market value right now. The Ravens need to reduce that. 2 guys. Urban is getting older and starting his 11th season now, I believe it is. So he's a guy who at some point they're going to have to replace. Great handshake guy, provided real value this last year. So I'm not in a hurry to do it, but I think the Ravens probably would be better off carrying 6. Maybe one of them could be a stash guy for the entire year, the new way they have the roster set up with the additional players. And they need to get one younger guy. Broderick Washington is now. I think if he doesn't improve this year, he probably will be cut. At least there's a pretty good chance of that, I would think. So he's on the first year of his 3-year extension, I believe, this year. So it's actually there's not a big savings for cutting him after 24, but there is a little bit, if I recall correctly. And then the big 3, you certainly hope they stay around. But Michael Pierce is an older player. And you got to be ready to move on from him. Travis Jones and Matabike, they better be the pillars on which this defensive line is built. But get a younger player.
Certainly, yeah. I am very excited to see the Travis Jones Justin Matabike duo long term. And usually, most snaps you have 2 in, but you certainly need depth and you certainly need a succession plan. So I think that'd be a tier 3 need for me. Number 5 for me is going to be outside linebacker. I think the Kyle Van Noy signing solidified the group to a large extent. You have your early down run pluggers and potential, well, first of all, Malik Harrison, and then Tavius Robinson, who might develop some pass rush, might not. We'll see. But then you have Odafe Away, who could potentially play up to earning a cornerstone contract this year. David Ojabo could also help fill in as a designated pass rusher. So it's a need for me. The way I'll just put it out there now, any of the tier 1 or tier 2 needs, I'd be happy with in the top 100 or the first 3 picks. And then any of the tier 3 needs, I'd rather wait till day 3.
Fourth round at the highest. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Great. I have actually the same thing there. Find a developmental edge. The only point I'd make in addition to what you're saying, well, I'll make 2. Number 1, the first one is great place for another small school pick if they could pull it off. And you may be right about the portal changing things such that there really isn't anybody there. I hope the Ravens, may have found a gem or 2 that they like traits wise better than everybody else does, and so they can find some value there. This is one place where I'm trusting the organization to make a pick rather than having the guy and the name ready to go for that. The other thing I'd say about this is that the Ravens have a ton of edge players currently. And in some ways, we can't even look at Malik Harrison as edge anymore because he's as a inside linebacker anymore because he's reshaped his body to play edge and he's weighing about 260 pounds. If that's the case, that's all he can do. Tavius Robinson is opposite him. Those guys have very limited roles currently, or they did last year. And if they're going to play again on the edge on early downs as basically snap relievers, then the Ravens really only have a spot for 1 draft pick, maybe 1 veteran that they bring in, but they don't have, a lot of space for edge even on the roster with Ojabo, Van Noy, and Oweh already there in addition to the other 2. It's not that they could, with a painful cut, they could get rid of somebody else, but I don't think they're looking to really cut any of those players, especially with Tavius Robinson just being a second-year guy, and Malik Harrison being signed largely for his special teams contributions as well. So those are the 2 things I would say about it is find that hidden gem from a small school and you don't have an unlimited number of spots.
Agreed. Just I forgot to mention Malik Camp could also factor in.
Yeah, good point.
Pretty good in training camp last year. He was a small school guy they did find last year, and so if they don't take an outside linebacker at all this cycle, that's fine too. But if you find the right guy and the value aligns, pull the trigger. And if you have to cut somebody you drafted in the late rounds in the last cycle or the year before, so be it. You're trying to build the best 55-man roster you can, 55 plus handshakes. So.
Who would be the most surprising cut at edge for you?
The most surprising?
And I don't mean they're obviously not going to cut Oweh. So let's start with that. And I don't see them cutting Van Noy since they just signed him to a 2-year deal. So I guess what I'm saying is, could you see a situation where they cut Ojabo?
I don't think Ojabo. I think they cut Robinson before Ojabo.
Okay.
I think they still have invested too much into him, and he still does have a much higher ceiling, I believe. Depending on how he looks coming off injury.
I think I would say this, that I think both the floor and the ceiling for Ojabo are now lower, and we've seen a lot of problems out of him when he has been on the field, including the preseason in his 2 years. Even though it's not that many total games, it's about 8 total games I think he's even played in. I'm not saying there is any high chance they'll cut him, but what you're saying also is part of the Ravens' problem is they just don't have a lot of extra space. I don't think you can carry realistically more than 6 outside linebackers on the roster, and that really only means
probably
they have
5.
Spot.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, it's probably 5 at the end of the day. Just if you're, I'll use your offensive line of demarcation. If you're a better pass blocker than run blocker, you're more valuable. I think that applies outside linebacker. If you're a better pass rusher than run edge setter, I think pass rush is probably a little bit more valuable. So I'd lean Ojabo over Robinson if push came to shove.
All right. Sounds good. So developmental edge was my number 5. I think that's where you were too on it, right?
Yes. So my final tier 2 need is safety. And really, you mentioned at the top of the show 2 safeties. Really, they have 1.5 safeties because you expect and want Kyle Hamilton to be playing and as the big nickel for 30, 40, 50% of snaps, I believe. So you really need some people there, and Marcus Williams hasn't been the healthiest. And I really do want that capability to bring Hamilton down, because if you already lost Clowney, who was your sort of your edge wrecker, and Hamilton, and if you don't have that ability to bring Hamilton down, I am concerned that the pass rush would dip pretty significantly. I also like. I like putting more safeties on the field when you can use some dime, but you really, really need depth there. Maybe the thinnest position on the entire roster at the moment.
Well, they were forced several times in 2023 to take Hamilton out of a front end role where he is unbelievably dominant. When you move Hamilton off of that slot position, you basically are minimizing the impact of Hamilton, even though he does a fairly good job of being a split field guy. He has good instincts. He gets the ball. He comes downhill. He makes some plays. But whenever you put him on the back end, you take away the best horizontal defender in the entire NFL, the guy who can take away the strong side of the field all by himself, just make a huge difference maker of a player, and you take him further away from the play. And I just think that did not help the Ravens. And so one time Hamilton obviously knocked himself out of a game with the suspension. He missed 2 other games, I believe, with injury, but there were a couple other games where other players like Darryl Worley or Williams got hurt, which forced him back to the back end. And that's where the Ravens need to have more depth. And I think it is a very important position. If I were to break those out, safety is a position ahead of the other 2, and that I would have taken on the depth piece, because they're very shorthanded at safety right now.
Absolutely. So that would mean offensive guard is your number 4, Ken?
Yeah, it's the second offensive lineman, no later than round 4 is how I had it defined. So they've got to find some value guy at that point. And if they draft someone in round 3, if they even went to a second, if they went offensive tackle for 2 rounds, I wouldn't be upset with that. But I think they really need to get a quality, near ready player by round 4, which really means to me playing by year 2. You don't have to play in year 1, but you got to be ready to play in year 2. And that fits a ramp up role with Simpson. Whoever it is will probably get some playing time in year 1. Hopefully you're not trying to replace a Linderbaum or whatever. You're planning on giving him a big contract, so you don't need a 2-year ramp up at center either.
Sure, definitely. I recently saw a chart put out, I think it was yesterday, where they were looking at the surplus value potential per position. And quarterback was obviously way to the right side out in front. Wide receiver was second. Offensive tackle was third. And let me see if I get this right. Offensive guard and then defensive interior and edge rusher. But offensive guard jumped ahead of cornerback as far as surplus value potential, as far as, how much can you save if you hit on a draft pick versus paying fair market value because of the increase of these offensive guard salaries recently.
Okay, so it really refers specifically to this offseason. I have the feeling that may be largely a 1-year blip of salaries because of a fairly weak draft. And if you go through the guard, there are not a lot of pear-shaped guards in this draft. I know Eric DeCosta says it's all strong. I think what Eric is basically saying is that there are a lot of tackles who can move to guard, and they might be okay. And you've got guys at the top of the draft, certainly Graham Barton and others who fit that, maybe Morgan, who fit that role of guys who will be a guard in the pros. And usually you have that. But the number of actual guards in this draft who are good, it's not that high, at least not in my opinion. And center, if you want a center, by the way, this is your year to build your franchise. Yeah.
We'll see. Ben Bowers got a pretty good contract 2 years ago also. So, it just may be that the entire offensive line from left to right and the entire thing is a premium position going forward. We'll see how the college ranks continue to supply. But we'll move on to number 3. And I have the big 3 all grouped into tier 1. And you're really splitting hairs between all 3, I believe, trying to balance short-term need and long-term need. And all 3 have a significant amount of both. But my number 3 is going to be wide receiver. The reason why that's not quite as pressing is because you do potentially have your cornerstone player already under contract for the next few years in Zay Flowers. We'll see what happens with Rashad Bateman. My general theory, both at cornerback and at wide receiver, is you need 3 starting caliber perimeter options at both positions. 3, not slots, not, just real quick. Arthur, let's stick on wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar took 72% of his snaps out of the slot last year. I don't think he's necessarily an outside receiver at this point. So, and it also has a tremendous surplus value potential, second most. So that would be number 3 for me. I'd be happy with the wide receiver in the first, second, third, or fourth if the right player's there. I don't necessarily discriminate between the 3 positions, although I do believe offensive tackle has as you always mentioned, the highest barriers to entry.
Right. Okay, wide receiver also number 3 for me. I think you mentioned some of the things. The Ravens do not need a slot receiver in this draft. They have too much of their offense is based on having a tight end flexed in that position. They've got 2 great tight ends, which is a good problem to have, but nonetheless a problem, which probably means wide receivers get less total snaps. So I'm with you on the 3 boundary guys. I do think Aguilar, I don't know if he's really their backup X. He's more of a reliever for Flowers on some Z snaps, probably would be a different way to put it. But he's a guy who he does not exactly fit the Ravens' needs anymore in terms of where he would typically play. So, and also some of it is in terms of Monken figuring out how to derive that value from Aguilar when he's played somewhere else. The fact that he played 72% of the snaps in the slot last year probably is not a good thing for having enough 12 personnel in the field. So, right. We got that to start with. It is one of the things I discriminated against in my top 10 lists was big slot receivers. And there are a fair number of those in this draft are guys, big bodied guys who, there's no more penalty for going over the middle of the field anymore. You'll hear often quoted, all of the new things they've done to restrict hitting on wide receiver. I've watched Super Bowl 35 again, by the way. There's an unbelievable hit on, might be Ike Hilliard. It was one of the Giants receivers coming over the middle. And I forget it was Sharper or Lewis.
Sharper. If I remember, Sharper put a lick on him. If I remember that one, but it's been a while.
It's a visual memory from that game, though, isn't it, for you, Voss? Yeah. Same for me. So. Sharper, one of my favorite Ravens linebackers of all time, even though I know he's not thought of in the same light as some of the others, but he's great.
Definitely.
Okay. Anyway, so the wide receivers, I'm up for big bodied players on the outside. There are some guys I like who I wouldn't be totally upset with getting in the first round. I think it's actually a little bit less likely that one of those even drops to the Ravens at 30. There's actually kind of a dearth of talent, in my opinion, between about 20 and 35 at wide receiver. So most other teams are going to be on the lookout, on the sniffing out any wide receiver value they can in the first round. I just don't think there's a tremendous value in there between about 20 and 35. And I know Ladd McConkey, for example, is a player who gets often mocked to the Ravens. It's not like he couldn't do some very positive things for the Ravens, but I think you probably get less value in the same way you get less value from a great slot cornerback in this draft because the Ravens, want to use Kyle Hamilton there.
Yes. Yeah. McConkey to me is a little redundant with Flowers. So, I'm not married to the idea that you need a 6'4" skyscraper out there. You need somebody that can play the X. Doesn't necessarily, you can have a 6-foot player that can, Steve Smith play the X, but you got to be able to play X because that's where they need depth. And that's probably the area of the field that Lamar needs to expand his repertoire a little bit to take the offense to the next level.
Do you have a favorite receiver for maybe the second round pick?
To me, it would be Xavier Legette, but I don't think he's going to get there anymore. A couple of weeks ago, I thought there was a chance he's going to get there. Now I don't think so. So, yeah.
Okay. So he's my guy too. That'd be very exciting if he made it to 62. I'd be doing backflips. But again, we're kind of working off some older consensus thoughts that he might have gotten to 62. And the truth of the matter is he probably won't. But he would be a different type of receiver. He's not an enormous guy. He's more built like a running back. And that's, what I think would be very interesting about the pick is somebody to be a big yak machine for this Ravens team.
Yeah. The way he takes the ball on a slant and can bulldoze one guy and juke another guy and bulldoze the next guy. It's exciting. It's an A.J. Brown, similarity there. Anyway, let's move on to number 2. For me, that's going to be cornerback. I've gone back and forth with my top 2, but I think cornerbacks slightly better position than offensive tackle because for sure Ronnie's free agent next year. Marlon may still play up this year and be better. But you have Brandon Stevens entering a contract here. You need a third guy for sure. You lost Ronald Darby, who played a pretty important role, I thought, last year. And, you can never have enough cornerbacks, as Ozzie Newsome said. So it needs to be a boundary guy. Also, Arthur Mollett, 84% of his snaps were out of the slot last year. So he is also not a perimeter cornerback.
Yeah, that's understating the number he had on out of the slot. Is that like a PFF position, detailed positions kind of number?
I just did the quick math. It did where do you line up, slot, D-line, overhang. I guess they probably should have grouped overhang in with slot, but it's probably 100% really. But anyway, it's a very high. He's not going to be on the outside. He shouldn't be playing on the outside. That's not his skill set.
Right. If he lines up truly not on the outside, if he lines up truly on the outside, it's usually because the Z motioned in the slot, and then Marlon Humphrey or somebody came in to track him. But he's basically 100% slot guy. It's my thought about that. I personally I get more and more upset probably the older I get in terms of people quoting certain things about PFF where I know how they're put together and it just doesn't make any sense in terms of it. PFF, by the way, outstanding company. They've done so much in terms of changing football. I don't want to downgrade them in ways, but one thing that pisses me off is the way people quote them as if it means something different than it is. Like, so integer sack totals, huge negative for me, because the primary thing is the guy who drives the quarterback off the spot. For me, the first pressure will always get a share of a sack that eventually occurs. Might be a half, might be a third, might be 2/3 in some cases, might be the whole thing in some weird cases. But with PFF, if somebody else actually makes the sack, they automatically get 0. They just get a pressure. So as soon as you look at that, oh, well, Tyler Linderbaum allowed 0 sacks. Well, that's not true. I got him for 3 1/3 sacks or something last year. And that's the case of getting the first pressure. So anyway, we have that kind of stuff that shows up. And the detailed positions are definitely an area where you see some weird things happen. But cornerback, yeah, I would agree. I think he's my number 2 also. They do not need a slot cornerback, I think is the big thing. I think they're set. I think the combination of Ardarius, who I do not believe is a safety, he is listed there, but I don't believe that's what he's going to play. And Mollett, they're set for actually a couple of years because Ardarius will just be entering year 3 this year because of his non-qualification year. So 2 outside aircraft carrier size corners, that's I would love to see them drafted in this draft. So they'll probably have an opportunity to draft one in the first 3 rounds who might be a guy they really like for the position and for value. And then a guy later that they really like who's maybe a hidden gem, unknown quality who might take a year to develop. Both of those are fine, by the way. The Ravens have ramp up time at corner. It'd be nice if their, say, 4th round corner would be an Anthony Averett type who wouldn't take too long to ramp up and be a decent player. But those are the types they need. The Ravens are not a team anymore that has sacrificed on size on the outside. I don't think many teams do, but a 5'11" corner is now a little bit on the short end on the outside. A 5'10" corner is very short. And it used to be a 5'8" or 5'9" corner on the outside was maybe acceptable. Not anymore.
Tavon Young was about 5'9", 5'10", I think, right? Yeah, I agree. Max Melton, I think, hits that 5'11" threshold. He'd be my smallest guy on the outside. Phillips is another guy I like, but I think he's probably going to be pigeonholed to the inside. Just putting a bow on it. Cornerback and wide receiver, both injury-prone positions. Very more injury-prone than some other positions. So Eric DeCosta made the race car analogy. If you have a twisted ankle and you're playing offensive guard, you can play through it, not necessarily at those speed positions. And rotation, wide receiver, certainly a rotation snap. Even wide receiver 4 usually gets about 500 snaps a season. And cornerback has been, when the Ravens have the depth, a rotational position as well. So definitely would like to see them add. I'm not in love with the mid-round corners this year. There's not a whole lot of Tariq Woolen's height, weight, speed types as much as there has been in the last couple of years. So maybe a reason to go a little earlier, but you got to play the board. Obviously, number 1, pretty much everybody's number 1. offensive tackle. Ronnie Stanley, final year of his deal. Did you see the incentives, by the way, Ken? Brian spelled out the incentives. Pretty much all of his incentives, he either has to make the Pro Bowl or All-Pro to make it. So
no playing time.
There's that small playing time one we mentioned a couple weeks ago, but the big, $500,000 here, $250,000 here, those are all they're extremely not likely to be earned.
Yeah.
They're not just not likely to be earned, they're very not likely to be earned.
That's interesting because his actual playing time last year was not that small that I think he would have wanted a lot of it built into playing time. Very interesting. But if you play 12 games and you're Ronnie Stanley, you're probably just about out of the Pro Bowl or certainly all pro consideration at that point too. So it's right. They're extremely not likely to be earned. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right. But then on the right side again, I am cautiously optimistic about Daniel Faalele, maybe more than some in the fan base. I know he had some levelized B games towards the end of the season on your grading. Patrick McCary maybe too. I don't think the Ravens are quite as low on him as some. I don't think they would have made that move for Morgan Moses if they didn't have any confidence in him. But certainly offensive tackle, number one, it's the strength of the class. Number two, it's the weakness of the team. And number three, it's probably one of the hardest positions from a size and shape to fill. So that's my number one.
Okay, absolutely my number one, too. I want to address a couple of things you said. First of all, let's talk about the existing players, Faalele and McCary. If you go through with either of them on a full season, I think it's quite risky to do it. First of all, I think McCary, his best position is going to be backup left tackle. It's funny how he's migrated from being he can play everywhere. He can plug in at all 7 positions on the offensive line. He could be your 6th offensive line. He could be your Haloti Ngata position and go like all that. All that's a bunch of crap. Basically, McCary has turned into being a above the replacement level backup left tackle, which is what the Ravens need him to be. They need to not have to play Daniel Faalele on the left side. So maybe that'll change this year because, hopefully they draft a left tackle and they have the left tackle that'll play on the left side instead of Stanley if that comes up during the year. They will be free to use McCary at other positions if they really wanted to, maybe as a backup center if Linderbaum misses a couple games. But that's the first point about McCary. The second point is about Faalele. You mentioned that he had some games at the end of the year, 4 games at a higher grade level. The reason he played his last 94 scored snaps to an aggregate score of 0.71 on my scale, which is right in the middle of the C range. The reason it looks so good is because his previous 240 snaps or so that he'd played lifetime were at an average score of 0.46. Mm-hmm. It's not that he was great this last year. He's right in the middle of the C range after adjustment. It's that there was a stark difference between him being utterly terrible and unplayable, way below the replacement level, and being a guy who's a C level for a very short period of time. And 94 snaps, you got to remember, is 1.5 NFL games. That's all that is. So, I'm a little bit concerned about projecting Daniel Faalele. Now, hopefully, he's had a great offseason in terms of positional coaching. We don't know yet, but maybe he suddenly learned how to use his hands better. Maybe he's striking. Maybe he's going to the chest plate, getting onto the disrupting pass rush plans at a whole new level if he got the proper coaching this offseason. But I don't know what to blame it on, but he didn't look any better with his hands in year 2, honestly, than he did in year 1. Even with the improvement in play, the step up in his ability with his hands was just not enough to really bet on from my perspective. So with Faalele, I'm still fairly skeptical of his ability to last the entire season at right tackle. And hopefully, if the Ravens draft the left tackle of the future, it won't be an issue. And they've got Josh Jones also, who might be a guy they play at right tackle. So they've got options there that potentially could work. But, Daniel Faalele may get the first chance. We'll see how that works. If he does, then great. I hope he takes it and runs with it. Let me go to left tackle here for a second because it's my number one, but I'm going to get more specific with it. I'm going to say it's an overwhelming number one. I've gone from being 40% left tackle to now I'm saying I'm 75% left tackle with the first pick. And a couple of things play into that. One is it's a huge portion of the Ravens' value they have in terms of JJ points or whatever other measure you want to use for the thing. It's an enormous percentage of their value is in that first pick. The second thing is they can't afford a compromised player at the position because the barriers of entry are too high to do that. So, an example of compromised players in the position would be Barton or Morgan, guys who you literally are hoping to roll boxcars, or actually, I'm not sure what's a good craps analogy for this, a hard 10 or something, to try and, get this guy to play a decent left tackle for you. I think it's actually a fairly limited chance in those cases. Even though Morgan played perfectly decently at Arizona, he just doesn't seem to have the length for the position to me to get excited about his chances in the pros.
He's a rich man's McCary. He's a rich man's McCary. Yep.
And we got to have a guy with left tackle feet. We haven't had one since Ronnie Stanley, who actually had the ability to move around on that left side. And maybe McCary's probably the closest, but I want to see somebody who can really move and get it done. And so even some of the right tackles, they have question marks in that area, but they do all project well by size and length to play on that left side. So I like that. But the ideal has all three, and it's going to be real tough for the Ravens to get one of those guys. The only guy that I see that I think really projects exceptionally well at the NFL level by experience, by length, and potentially by feet as well, although this maybe is his shortest coming area, is Tyler Guyton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, he's really close to the top of my list of potential targets. We'll get that. I think that's going to be our final segment here. Yeah. I guess it's just maybe the contrarian in me that wants to push back on some of the doom and gloom. You have to take an offensive tackle. You have to reach no matter what. Offensive tackle, the whole season's going down the toilet. I don't necessarily agree with that. Lamar Jackson's the most elusive quarterback in the NFL. There was a mock today put out by Josh Norris that was going around on Twitter, had 12 offensive tackles in the first round. So if your board gets wiped out, and your board's wiped out, then there's more than one way to skin a cat. You could still put pieces together with more 12 personnel, maybe better wide receiver core and an improved defense. It goes against everything that Eric DeCosta stands for and Ozzie stands for to say we're taking this position in this round no matter what. I just can't sign on that.
Okay, so this came up this morning, and I did want to talk about this specifically. If you're going to reach for a player, the way I look at it is you make an uneconomical draft pick. You pick them way before anybody else would. Let's say at 30, you pick a guy who might have been the 36th pick. Well, then you look at the board and you ask yourself, what's the difference between picks 30 and 36? And that's your cost of reaching. All right. Now, you have another option. You can trade back at that position. But then I would also say if you trade back and you lose that guy and you have to drop another 9 picks or whatever on your board to do it, or you chase the price down and you don't get him in round 2, you could end up costing yourself way more. And in particular at left tackle, that's true. It's one of the few times in the history of the Baltimore Ravens that I'm going to say it is okay to reach a little at offensive tackle this year because of the barriers at left tackle, because of the barriers to entry. I don't want a right tackle there, and I don't want a guard, and I don't want a swing man, and I don't want a versatile 5-position guy. So that means I don't want Barton specifically, and I don't want Morgan because I don't think he has the leg. So it means I want somebody who actually has left tackle traits. And if the guy who I would be okay with, if they said, you know what, our guy isn't there, but if they reached for Kingsley Suamataia at 30, I'd be okay with it. He's got all the traits and just none of the not the total experience package yet. The guy who's too much of a reach and they better be able to get in round 2 if they try him is Amagaji.
Yeah, Amagaji and Paul. I don't think so for round 1.
Yes, Paul also.
But I have Suamatia.
It's 6 symbols. Six syllables. Suamataia.
Suamataia. He's the final guy when we get to the segment before I trade down. So I agree with you there. I wouldn't. To me, it's more I wouldn't reach for a guard tackle hybrid because you need a tackle. That's really where I am. So anyway. You mentioned who do we want to see taken before the Ravens come on the clock? You mentioned a couple of them. I think certainly all 6 quarterbacks is the place to start. And it seems that real quick, just back to Suamataia. He actually went at 26. I've seen him starting to creep up in the early
Yep.
20s lately. So just put that out there. But anyway, back to who do we want to see taken? So the Ravens have their pick of the litter when the clock strikes pick 30, all 6 quarterbacks. And I think there's a pretty good chance, maybe 80, 90%, probably 80% that all 6 will go.
80%. So I think what I've seen in most recent mocks, and the one that worries me is Denver and whether or not they're going to actually draft a quarterback. But one of the things that can go wrong with the first round is a team somewhere in before pick number 30 decides, hey, you know what? We were going to pick a quarterback, but there's going to be quarterbacks left in round 2 because it doesn't look like Nix and Penix are necessarily both going to be gone. Why don't we just jump on a left tackle here? Because we have a left tackle need a year away, and I'm not sure I completely believe in Mims or Tyler Guyton to be ready this year, but boy, do I believe in him to be ready next year. That's the kind of pick that will screw the Ravens. And if any team decides to jump off their need for a BPA tackle, oh my God, it would be a disaster, and you're going to hear it from me on draft night, folks. So I hope a lot of people are planning to be there for the draft party on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But Voss, you're joining me on Saturday,
Friday.
which could be Friday, which could be a lot of fun.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we'll be consterning pick by pick with the selections, particularly in the first round, but also in the second and third for sure, to make sure our favorites are not taken and some of our less favorites are. But anyway, Nix
That's the Ozzie move, right? All 3 quarterbacks he picked in the first round, he moved back and took them, right? All 3.
Quarterbacks, or
yeah. Flacco, he moved back and then
Flacco moved back. Yeah.
Lamar, he took Hurst first,
yes,
and then moved back up for Lamar. And I think
Bowler,
right? The same thing, because that was a Suggs year, or no?
It was the Suggs year, yeah.
So he took Suggs first, and then moved up for Bowler. So yeah, that's the Ozzie trick, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Ravens have never had a real top pick to take the top quarterback in the draft. So they've never had one of the top 3. So, they've always been kind of stuck with a guy with warts, so to speak. Thankfully, the warts on Lamar Jackson look pretty damn good right now. But
absolutely.
Yeah, it's okay. So all 6 quarterbacks. How about I'll add a second group. I think there are 5 edge rushers who could potentially go in round 1, and those include Turner, Latu, and Verse, who everybody I think has 1, 2, 3 in some order. But then also I think both Robinsons could be gone. The Missouri Robinson, I'll call him, and because Chop Robinson of Penn State as well.
Yes, I wouldn't be too excited. Maybe Verse if somehow he got to 30, but that doesn't seem likely. And one more guy I'll throw in there, Marshawn Kneeland is getting some potential late round buzz. And, once you get past pick 25, there's always some teams that sort of reach a little bit for a certain guy, especially edge rushers and D linemen. It seems for some reason they reach more at those positions than others.
Yeah, we've seen a lot. You always hope. I wish there were 3 Raiders draft picks in this first round because we could count on them to do some wacky things. They took Darius Hayward-Bay at number 7. They took who was the edge? They took at number 4 because
Cleveland Farrell.
Max said he couldn't trade the pick, and I'm saying, take 70% of the value if you need to. He was such an uneconomical draft.
We were mocking him or the Ravens at 20 that year, I think.
And Arnett was the third guy. And he was out of the organization, like I think inside of 2 years. So it was a really horrible pick. But as great as
Seahawks too.
Yeah.
The Seahawks had some eye-raising picks, and apparently Schneider's running the show now without Carroll's influence. But they have an earlier pick this year, and I'm sure McDonald will have some sway.
Yeah. So that included like Jordan Brooks was in that group 1 pick ahead of Queen.
Rashad Penny was a reach. They had like 2 years in a row where they just took these, ranked number 60 defensive linemen and never amounted to anything. Yeah. So,
All right. Outstanding. So go ahead. Give us another group where you.
All right. So let's do defensive line since we're there. On the heels of giving Justin Madubuike a franchise cornerstone contract, I don't think the Ravens are necessarily in the market for a first rounder. So Byron Murphy and Johnny Jershon Newton should be gone. I think there's also a chance that Braden Fisk could potentially sneak into the first, or even maybe Chris Jenkins. If I recall last year, Mozzie Smith also went to Michigan. Dallas reached on him because there is a scarcity of defensive line, and they're getting paid a lot of money now. So I could see somebody maybe, sneaking them in the pick 25, 26, 27.
Would love for that to happen. I mean, Byron Murphy is really getting some love now. He might be drafted before Newton. I think there's actually a pretty decent chance. But Newton was the consensus top lineman for much of this draft process. He's actually still my number one guy in terms of the defensive line. But those two going is kind of a must. I don't think there's really any danger that they won't both be gone by that point. And we'll see, because it's a little bit like left tackle is finding an impact player right away is very difficult. So anyway, I think that's a good bet. I'll move on to wide receiver. And here's an interesting one, because you're picking your poison as the Ravens. You probably are better off if a number of wide receivers are taken, but also you really want the guys who have the traits that you don't really value as highly to be gone. So for me,
exactly.
Yeah, that includes the big three guys are going to be taken no matter what. So it's not a matter of you wouldn't love to have those guys. You would love to have them, but they're all going to be gone. And that's Harrison, Neighbors, and Adunze. After that, I think McConkey does not exactly fit the Ravens' needs. So I would hope he's gone. A guy I think is way overvalued potentially in this draft, although I think that speed is very worthwhile, is Worthy.
Agreed. He doesn't have the Worthy's a player that I hope another team picks, and then they don't take a player in the next round, so the Ravens get the wide receiver where they want him then. Yeah. That would probably be most of the guys. I think they're in range. I don't think Coleman's going to get into the first round, or Roman Wilson.
Adonai Mitchell.
So I'm actually I would be on board with Mitchell, not at the top of my board, but I'd be good with him at 30, depending on who's available. And I think the upside, top 5 all-time RAS athlete at wide receiver, the upside and the surplus value potential, if you can get his head on straight, which is something the Ravens should be able to do with the locker and the character they already have on the team, that would be a player that I would hope would be there.
Okay, and he would be, for the Ravens, he would be an X, which might be a little more of a stretch on his route running capabilities than he's currently had to do.
Sure. Greg Lewis has to coach him up.
Okay, very good. Mitchell is a guy that I kind of hope the Ravens don't take at 30. As I don't think the Ravens get full value. They lose value from Bateman when they gain value in Mitchell. So it's kind of like the situation at slot corner, but it might be kind of the reverse, that we have a number 2 player already at that X spot, and by getting a number 1, we're marginalizing that number 2 player. Whereas the other at slot, we have a number 1, and bringing another guy in who's pretty good is going to play 60% of the snaps. All of a sudden, is not real value.
Right.
Okay, so but please continue on. Go to another position where you're hoping.
Yeah, let's do. I guess we did edge, quarterback, wide receiver. I guess we'll do corner.
Okay.
Now, personally, I would be, when we're sitting there on draft night, I'm going to be rooting for corners to slide, so that increases the chance that a really tremendous value is going to be there for the Ravens at number 30. But I think it's a very safe bet that Mitchell and Arnold are certainly gone, and DeJean is most likely also gone at that point.
I'm good with those 3 being gone. I think the Ravens will not harvest the value from DeJean because his versatility is some of the value. And again, the Ravens just aren't looking for a slot corner. Now maybe this year he would get time at slot, and that would be of value. And not only that, he'd get his feet wet in the NFL, and he'd be doing something. All that would be nice. I think the Ravens probably are just better getting a guy that can play rotationally on the outside in year 1. And it'll be rotational for about 4 or 5 games before somebody gets hurt. Right. And then, it'll be an every down kind of role for them, including the possibility the rookie gets hurt, of course. For me, there are 5 guys at corner, and Mitchell, Arnold, DeJean, Wiggins, and McKinstry. And of those, I want to see exactly 4 gone in the top 29 picks. And that is a razor's knife to be playing on, by the way. Razor's edge. Because you could get disappointed, definitely, for sure, to lose one of your, to not have your top 5 guys. You could also have 2 guys that slip through at that point. And if that's the case, then you really are questioning, exactly how you play it from that point, particularly if offensive tackles are overdrafted. I think you probably do pick a corner at that point, if that were the case. But anyway, since it's the Ravens' second biggest need, I think it would be very foolish to want all 5 of those guys to be gone by 30. Exactly 4 to 5 is my call.
If I had my choice, I would prefer both Wiggins and McKinstry were available.
Yes.
I would take the DeJean at 30. I would, because I think he can kill 2 birds with 1 stone as far as replacing Ronald Darby and replacing Geno Stone, potentially. And I do think he can play on the outside. I don't think he has the agility to be a Pro Bowl corner on the outside, but I think he has the instincts to sort of match. He has a straight line speed, just not the agility. So, yeah, I think you want to Wiggins would be if the other 4 go and Wiggins is still there, that'd be perfect for me.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk through the order of those corners a little later in this show. I think actually in a separate show we'll be doing right after this. Brock Bowers, want to see him gone. If somehow Jatavian Sanders were to come into the first round, and it ain't happening, folks, but if it could somehow, that would be a dream pick to hear his name called somewhere in the 20s.
Yes, 100%. And the history of first round tight ends, you better be, they're not so safe as you think they are. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Now we're getting into the tackle position, right? So the remaining is how do you want the tackles to come off the board? So there's the top 4 left tackle prospects, which the Ravens will not sniff. And those are, the top 3 are Alt, Fashanu, and Fatano. None of those guys they're going to have. I did see one interesting mock from our friend Gordon, yeah, who wanted to trade the Ravens' entire draft for number 17 to get Fatano. So he was making a point. I think, he doesn't really want that, but that was funny.
Right. Yeah. To me, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
There is a potential, and we're going to talk about this in the second part, that the Ravens could trade up and get Fashanu in what I think is a very reasonable trade offer to another team, but it's not cheap. So if they're going to get a player like Fashanu, who's the second best left tackle in this draft, I think pretty clearly to me, they're going to have to trade way up to get him. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the second part of the show, but I'll tease that here. Do you want to talk about some other group of left tackles?
Well, I think you just want as many interior guys to go. Fuaga, Barton, Powers Johnson, Morgan, Frazier. Can Bebe sneak in there? Can Christian Haynes sneak in there with this new, valuation of offensive guards? It's possible. So as many guys that aren't pure tackles that go, the better.
With you all the way there, and you're including Morgan in that group. Powers Johnson, interesting player, and he's one. If I'm going to go off schedule and take somebody to play another position, he fits a lot of needs. I don't think he can play tackle. Is probably too short for that, but he can do. He can really help you on the inside. That's for sure. I go with the last group was what I call the right priced left tackle group, and those are the guys who are consistently mocked between 20 and say about 35. I would add probably increase this group to a size of 4 right now and say that Latham, Mims, Guyton, and I'm going to include Suamataia in it right now, are 4 guys that the Ravens better have one of those survive to them at number 30. If that doesn't happen, boys are going to be scary. And it would be really scary if there are 2 guys, if there's only one guy that survives if there's only one who survives to 30, because I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on at 29 and perhaps at 28 for another team to jump up, trade for that left tackle pick, knowing what the Ravens covet. And that is exactly what happened in 2007 to the Ravens. They lost Joe Staley to the 49ers when 49ers jumped up and traded for pick number 28 from the Patriots. And that certainly ruined a draft day party. I can tell you that. So.
Yeah. For me, I hope that as many of these as possible are there, and the Ravens can have the pick of the litter, and Coach Joe D and DaCosta and everybody and Ozzie can, decide who they think has the highest likelihood of success. There's also, a chance that somebody falls in love with Sainer still, the slot corner out of Michigan, or Hicks, the safety. Maybe they love their football character and they want them to be sort of a team captain, and they could maybe sneak into the bottom of the first. This year seems every year there's about 20 first rounder graded guys. And I think this year is the same, maybe even fewer than that. So there could be an out of the blue Raiders type of pick there in that range, hopefully.
It is a very reasonable hope. And if you want to add one for a completely off color, off schedule pick, I think that's a reasonable thing. We're still talking about needing to go something like 29 of 33, including the one off schedule guy, for the Ravens to get their way at number 30. It's not an easy road. It's going to be a very gut wrenching Thursday night that might end up in a trade down if the Ravens have a lot of their left tackle prospects go. And I think that's, I think that becomes a very high probability if they get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a possibility. The one thing I would say preventing or a reason not to trade out of the first is the 5th-year option. And we've discussed that on the show previously. I think the positions they are most likely to take, the 5th-year option is more valuable, whether that is tackle, wide out, or corner, where it's not a center or another position that's artificially inflating the value to keep up because there's only a few high paid players. Because these are expensive positions, the 5th-year option is more valuable than potentially other positions.
Yeah, completely agree. And I would feel the same way about a guard or an inside linebacker you're taking that you're a safety. You're not really harvesting the value necessarily out of the position. Now, that said, the Ravens are going to take that 5th-year option on Kyle Hamilton. So we'll be excited about that. Okay, well, Vas, always a pleasure to do this show with you. And this is obviously a special. We've got to come back. We've got a second part to this, including some really interesting stuff, some potential of how the Ravens might move around by trading. And then Vas and I will get right down to business in terms of naming the 6 guys in order of likelihood that we think fall out of the consensus top 20 that we would like to get in order. And so we'll talk through that, and hopefully you guys can come back and join us for that. Vas, anything to plug before we move on?
Baltimore Beatdown blog. We're going to have our instant reactions, full wall-to-wall coverage this weekend. Film reviews, who's best, recapping the grades from around the punditry. So please check it out, and look forward to celebrating draft season with the entire Ravens flock.
All right. Outstanding. Other folks out there, how to reach me for a film study short, so please do that. But I think the more important thing is tune in for our draft day coverage. We're there for every hour of the draft, and I guarantee you we'll be there until the last Ravens pick, at least of day 3. Last year, we actually missed the last Ravens pick because we signed off too early. And they traded back into the 7th round and picked up Voorhees, which is a very interesting pick. But we're not going to make that mistake this year. We're going to try not to make that mistake this year. We have a rotation of panelists coming through. Vas will be my co-host on day 2. We'll have a number of other panelists that day as well. On day 1, it's all 22 films, Coach Derek of all 22 films. So he brings a lot to the table, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And on day 3, we have a broad panel of people. And no real specific guy who's number 1, but we have Gabe Ferguson, some of the other favorites from the show, and I hope you guys will enjoy all 3 days of the draft with us. It's always a very intense, it's a laid back of a George Costanza laid back method. I mean, we are going nuts with very small things in the whole scheme of life, but the Ravens are important to us. And so if you want Ravens centric coverage and you don't want to hear about what, the number 1 quarterback or the number 2 quarterback had for breakfast that day, then stick with us, because all we care about is how the next pick affects the Baltimore Ravens. So that's our watch party in a nutshell. Oh, one more thing, highly interactive. So you'll be able to ask your questions directly to us in real time on the stream. Hit us up there. I know some of you people will just watch the video. It'll be available on YouTube after the fact as well. For Vasilarikas, this is Ken McKusick saying goodbye. We'll talk to you just in a few minutes for that second part of the draft show.